we like Marshall. I'm a Marshall stan.
I'm about to say
his teammates.
Oh.
All right, you know what? Let's move into a different topic. Actually,
we're gonna get into real trouble. Let's move on.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the retake. Joined by Kale, Relic, and our host, Mr. Builltt himself, Mr. WKU, Mr. We beat them last semester, but we're not going to talk about that. How are you doing today, Builltt?
I'm doing good. It's good to be here. You know. Yeah.
Great to have you.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna jump right in here and talk about we're gonna talk about little collegiate things. You know.
All right, let's do it. I love collegiate.
I'm sure we all love collegiate here, even Relic. You know, we've all had our.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean?
Technically, every single person in this call has done something for collegiate at one point.
One small thing for collegiate over here, but that's it.
True.
Okay, but it still counts.
Still collegiate.
I mean, it's on the VLR. It counts. Okay, whatever.
If someone who has 2 red losses is trying to get into the Mr. Funhaver 10-man server on the Funhaver role, or is trying to do that, I feel like you're qualified to say that you did something for collegiate. Okay.
Can we name drop?
I don't think we can name drop the amount of people that tried it.
I mean, we definitely can.
We could we'd have to go back into the logs, bro. Tim wouldn't care. It would just be like the people. We probably shouldn't gaslight them.
I feel like for the amount of people that you have to educate every week for Funhavers, it basically is collegiate. You know what I mean? Like nobody knows the process. Nobody knows who they're playing or how they're playing. They still don't know their comps. And then on top of that, it's basically just like a total shit show. And then you get to playoffs and it's like real teams again. But then, of course, every round is this on VLR.
True.
What do you?
I feel like that's Funhaver.
Nah, see, like
at least that's what it is whenever I did Funhaver. What did you say?
I was gonna say, like, my favorite thing is like when it's like there's like teams of what was I gonna say? I was gonna say something mean because I'm just disliking collegiate right now, but never mind. I'm not gonna say it. It's gonna be a little too mean. It's gonna be a little too mean, guys.
We can cut it out of the recording if it's too much. We can bleep it out, maybe.
Well, no, and it's like, oh my gosh, my Apple Watch died. What the heck?
Oh my goodness. Oh no.
ADHD, guys. Okay, anyways.
How's your Apple Watch, bro?
No, that's what I'm doing. Gosh dang it, guys.
We're not even
locked
in, man.
I feel like we're getting off track.
We definitely are. It's okay.
But anyways, bringing us back, Builltt, we saw your tweet. You guys beat Baker, top 11 team right now. Yep. Just wanted to talk a little bit about their rankings. CVH, everyone looks at those every time they drop them. They're surprised that if they are or aren't on the list. What are your general opinions about the rank?
CVal Hub originally came out, to basically be a consolidation of a Twitter shitstorm, pretty much. It was schools that didn't really know where they belonged, and then it was schools that thought they were basically Sentinels because they won a tournament or two. And it was basically supposed to be this consolidation of connecting one to the DreamHack Atlanta qualifiers, which was really well done and really well put on by them. And then on top of that was supposed to be this power ranking, right? And it was started up by a lot of the guys at Sinclair, all those guys are awesome. And then, some of those guys have branched on to do bigger and better things. And so it's kind of passed down. And my tweet at the time, I guess it wasn't necessarily to call out Baker because there was a time where I think Fate is on Baker right now. And there was a time where he played on Realism, and I would have done anything to get on that Realism roster with Monkey02 and Mungus the Giant and all those guys. Those guys were cold. And they were doing a lot of really fun things in scrims that I really was interested by. And so I actually have a ton of respect for the guys at Baker. I really do. That was two or so years ago. But I was more so trying to address the fact that collegiate is random. None of these schools are really just true top dogs except for probably sub 10. And I feel every time that I see these rankings get posted, some schools are still up there that should just not even be in the conversation anymore. And then there's some schools that are just way too low, way too high. And I feel Collegiate, there's a lot of egotistical guys in Collegiate, right? You really kind of have to like kind of take a step back and be like, listen, bro, just because you made the cut whenever there's probably like 75% of the people trying out are gold and Valorant doesn't make you just, some tier 2 pro player.
What's wrong with being gold in Valorant?
Nothing's wrong with being gold.
That seems kind of hateful.
That does sound like hate.
As someone who has collegiate matches too under her belt because she has to sub in for her most amazing and lovable Fisher teams that I love every single one of them and they all make me happy in life. What's wrong with being gold?
There's nothing wrong with being. I'm not gonna lie.
That was like free gas.
I said something about Fisher at a conference, and I don't remember which one it was. And the whole crowd kind of just stared at me, and but that's the thing. I feel like nobody in Collegiate says anything.
That's
truly
true.
I feel like everyone is like truly terrified. I feel like no one is confident enough to address real concerns, to talk about real necessary growth for the scene, talk about what the true role of Collegiate is, and then also like there's a lot of egotistical guys just running around playing Valorant, and they would get absolutely rolled in any fun haver event. And I feel like tier 2 is totally dying, right? It's totally dying, and we have a lot of these teams like YFP and Keyword Academy and all these things, and Collegiate is going to have to come into that conversation eventually. And until people can kind of stop and kind of start getting out of their heads and really start talking about these big issues, tier 2 is not going to be able to go anywhere. Collegiate's not going to be able to go anywhere. And we're just going to have a bunch of like 20-something-year-old guys who think they're super great at Valorant because they hit Immortal 3. That's it. That's where Valorant's going to go. And so that's kind of why I make tweets like I did with the Baker tweet and like I do with other tweets and stuff like that. It's because I'm not afraid to say that stuff.
So I do kind of want to circle back to the rankings, because you said that there were a couple teams on there that you said that you don't think should be on there. I'm not here to start drama.
Oh no!
But
you're gonna get me in trouble. But that's all right.
To get a little juicy here, are there any teams on this list that you want to maybe call out that you think shouldn't be on that list?
How much trouble are you trying to start right now?
I'm not trying to start any trouble.
I mean, to be fair, there has been a lot of drama recently in the past couple of weeks. In every single scene, I feel like.
We're building onto the pile.
So there's a lot of drama we can talk about in startup.
I mean, yeah, Baker 11 is crazy. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
You heard it here.
West Virginia 8 is also crazy. Like, that's a whole nother story. I truly believe, first of all, right after Builltt was removed from WVU, which, by the way, was the heart and soul of that team, and anybody that disagrees wasn't paying enough attention. Somehow they've moved up whenever in reality they've moved down. It doesn't make sense to me. Fisher is only listed twice here, which is great considering they have about 6 teams.
Actually speaking, so out of the rosters that would make it, we technically the one either it was after this or before this, we actually had 3 on the list, by the way. So
okay.
Yeah,
that's better. That's some like Doge downsizing or whatever, Okay, I can get down with that. Okay.
Well, no, I'm not gonna be toxic. I'm not gonna be toxic. Guys.
No.
I'm just looking for WKU. So
I'm looking for WKU. I was pressed to put teams on blast, but I digress. I mean, all in all, there's just like a lot of teams on here that like they're definitely a little too high up. But like that's the thing. It's like all of these, like that's like truly the coolest part of Collegiate is all of these teams have guys that are like totally chill dudes. Like I genuinely like hanging out with them. And whenever you play against them for years, semester after semester, in numerous tournaments, in ranked, in fun havers, outside of the game, at tournaments, you meet them and you hang out with them. Like it's like this true community, right? And so obviously you can go like back and forth with all this stuff, but I feel like it damages these schools a little bit that really are trying to put themselves in positions to partner up with big organizations, which is actually really helpful for the scene. So while I love the power rankings in the short term to make guys that I actually think are fun, because like, for instance, like the guys on Fisher Navy and Fisher Tea Party, like I love those guys. They're all chill. I've been playing them in rank since I was in high school, and I'm about to graduate college now, right? Like OC Eagles, like they just had like a total absolute shitstorm go down at their facility with this like fire extinguisher, and they're still, you know, rocking and rolling like that. You know, that's something where it's like you feel bad for them, you want them to do well, you're supporting them in the season. So in the short term, I really don't care about these power rankings. I've actually been complaining about these power rankings, if you backdated it, like basically since they came out.
Yeah.
You know, but there's some schools, right, like Boise, or TMU. I haven't seen Boise or TMU in like a year. Last time I saw Boise was whenever like Daimyo was on the team.
Yeah.
And he's been retired for like a year and a half. Like,
yeah,
so
retired. 100% retired. Not
well,
because like the team
he's doing like he's doing content for like Flyquest now.
well,
That's
yeah, but
check.
that's also not why he's off the team.
Well,
we like Marshall. I'm a Marshall stan.
I'm about to say
his teammates.
Oh.
All right, you know what? Let's move into a different topic. Actually,
we're gonna get in real trouble. Let's
you know what? I actually want to continue on this topic because this will take us on to something very different. Out of your experience in Collegiate, both Buillt and Kale, what has been like your highlights in working in Collegiate, and what has been like the things you disliked about it so far? You don't have to name any names, more just like the hard part about Collegiate versus like the highlights that you enjoy.
I can go second because I'll name drop. I don't care. I don't give a fuck. I'll name drop.
Let's do it. I'm down.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like the highlight has been it sounds really cliche, but I really love my team. Like I genuinely love my team. And you know, I really loved our previous coach, Zook. Like I truly do take like a sense of pride in playing for Western. Like Zach and Zeem, who's been like consistently like one of our, you know, like most impactful players, we've received offers to like play for other schools, you know, for years now, and we have like no desire to leave, right? And it's truly because like we really do enjoy like playing here and hanging out with the friends that we made here and stuff like that. And so I think that, you know, whenever you find a program that's able to like kind of, because day one they basically just put me as like the captain of their premier team, right? And then I was like, I have no clue what I'm doing. Like I just play ranked, guys. But then they really put a lot of belief into me. And so whenever you have a system that is able to take people that are just kind of passionate about something and then really kind of give them resources to back themselves, gives them people that believe in you, it really starts to make the whole process feel very cohesive, and you know, it grows organically. And so I really, my favorite memories in esports so far have been truly like just watching my players get better and watching them get better alongside me and watching myself get better, because that's what the whole thing is about, right? So that's probably my biggest, you know, win, I guess.
Awesome. All right, Kale.
Okay, so biggest win in Collegiate. I would say I'd like think something positive. I swear there's positives. It's just like very hard sometimes to stem from it. Just for like the sake of when you are a manager / mom of like 70 kids for such a large program like that we have at Fisher, it's like very hard sometimes to really look at the positives over the negatives. I will say being able to go from outside of Collegiate into Collegiate, my respect was given because a lot of the people that are on the teams for Collegiate know me from outside of Collegiate, and they know like not necessarily not to fuck with me, but they'll be like they know that like I'm business. I'm not like someone that's like a nameless, you know what I mean? I'm not a stranger that's coming in. Like most of them know me, so it's kind of chill. As for that, like really just wins, I guess, are just hopefully seeing like my teams thrive, I guess. Like I try to do my best to do like all the reschedules that need to happen, being able to work with different teams. I try to work with a lot of the teams for reschedules too. Very limited times do we ever like not be able to reschedule. Usually just comes in at the end of, for example, like this like each like group stage or something. It's just harder because we already have so many reschedules, right? So it's like can't like move around already prior reschedule and all that. Besides that, I guess like that's the only wins I guess like I foresee in collegiate for me, just because I think my basis and like things that I want to do aren't very like are things that aren't active in collegiate yet, or they're things that just are not collegiate related. Like as for like things that are negatives, I mean, like, I'll just like say it right off the bat. Like, there's a lot of people who have egos that do not deserve the fact of having those egos. I do not give a fuck. Okay, I have people that I have to sit there and sugarcoat and act like they are such great people when they're treating me like a shit human being. Okay. And so one thing that I am doing in 2025 that I was like so worried about prior is like my image. Now I just don't give a fuck, because before I was like, oh, like what if I get canceled, if I get blah 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 for like not doing something. And then now I kind of look at it and I'm like, I have the space and my reputation built to a point where I can finally be like, okay, you're gonna treat me like shit, I don't have to be your manager. And so that's kind of what I've actually been implementing at Fisher recently, is that if people want to act like a crying baby, I'm not afraid to be like, okay, do this yourself. And every single time so far, I've been brought back.
I
Or
mean,
I've gained an
honestly,
apology at the end, or I've gained something, because they realize how much work I actually sit there and I put in, right?
Dude, managers do so much work. You're
Yeah.
like basically like a day trading stockbroker, basically, with scrims and time blocks and schedules and reschedules and planning ahead
Yeah,
and
and
Google
like
Calendar and
I know,
Prac
and all the
calendar
dates
and
end for
Gangster
the group
calendar
stages, like when playoffs
and
are gonna happen,
and
like all of that.
and multiple different rule books, instantly answering questions, working with directors that operate at the speed of a snail. It's a lot of work, like for real. And I remember we paid Trollman for one semester because we had no manager whatsoever, and I was doing it, and I was like literally unable to like sit in class because I'm sitting there constantly just trying to book scrims, and I'm like, this is a nightmare. This is an absolute nightmare. And yeah, that was probably the best money I've ever spent in collegiate, by the way. Was hiring Trollman for a semester. That was hands down the best money I've ever spent.
It's definitely like managers, I feel like they don't get enough respect. And
No, not
but
at all.
also like I think players also come into collegiate like having such an ego for being so dog shit at the game. I'm sorry. Like,
Yeah.
and if they're not dog shit at the game, they have a dog shit personality that will make it to where they can't be good at the game. Okay, I feel like esports programs who are cultivating such a culture to where they can be so negative in certain games against certain colleges and being rude and all of that, and then for that enemy team they're saying that shit to just not respond, just really shows the difference in cultures between different programs, right? I will say, like, you know, Fish is not going to be like a good program that in terms of never shit talks, but most of the time it's very like centered around like something like question marking someone's play in the game, or like question marking someone's like which is like just common. I feel like shit talk that even happens in like the challenger scene, right? As an admin who saw chats in the challenger scene, I can like fully facilitate that. Like that's just, I feel like, the most common shit talk. It does not get personal. I think the programs that do cultivate such a personal, like, they don't care about personal attacks within like their shit talk and they don't reprimand people, it's kind of stupid, kind of annoying. Like a perfect example, Akron. I don't give a fuck. I'll name drop. They treat Fisher like shit every single time. They nonstop talking about graduation rate. They word for word said that Cam Lord Kenny was a little bitch for the sake of that he did it for 500 subs wearing a Catmate outfit.
I'm sorry, just looking at Dave's reaction is so good.
Like, I'm sorry, like that type of program, and then they to be yelling across like at a LAN center, just nonstop yelling, saying personal things, calling people a bitch, calling people all like that, and they're getting away with it because it's a student ran LAN. So it's like, you know, it's like there's not like an actual hardcore collegiate LAN. I'm sorry, go to NECC, CECC, Playfly, Nace, anything, do that on the fucking stage, you're gonna get DQ'd. And there's a reason why you are not able to play in such leagues. I
Shots
feel
fired.
like shit talk is allowed to be very prominent However, personal attacks and calling people bitches and stuff like that, when in reality they're some of the nicest human beings that you can actually surround yourself in a team culture, is completely stupid to me and very ironic, because then when the enemy team does not decide to fully sit there and like take it, and they say even one word, the only thing that they have against certain schools is like, oh, your graduation, right? Like, yeah, I'm very proud that you're at a school that like like famous for LeBron James, by the way. It's not for your esports career, it's famous for LeBron James.
The king.
Real quick, because I want to say something so it doesn't, so whenever we look at this in post, it doesn't look like Kale ranting, even though it's totally justified. I truly think that like what she's getting at here is really important, like for this scene, right? Because I pulled up some things that I wanted to talk about, right? So this is a tweet from Marco, the owner of M80. He said, "I genuinely love what I'm seeing in the collegiate esports space. The energy and drive, as well as the quality of play, are really inspiring. Someone needs to figure out how to improve the fragmented ecosystem, but once that happens, it's going to be huge." I feel like the world is 100% watching this like micro community of a micro community. And the problem whenever you have schools, like you mentioned, and you have schools that are constantly putting out this kind of just like unwarranted spite just to like kind of fuel their own fire, it's not only just like, obviously it's a little hurtful, but like in my opinion, rule number one of esports is there's no crying in esports. But
oh yeah, no.
But I agree with you. Like if like just like constantly talking shit in scrims and everything like that, it gets to the point where it's like unprofessional, right?
Yeah, well, it's like not even so much like scrims though. Like you're literally in a collegiate match at a LAN and giving personal attacks to the enemy team. Like,
right.
And then they're like,
it's
it's
uncalled for.
just stupid. It's like, yes, you can be like, oh, you whiffed that. Okay, that's warranted shit talk. That is allowed. But like going into personal attacks on someone very stupidly, like that's like one thing that I feel like, especially collegiate esports just in general, really needs to change, is the aspect of that, because they don't know when to draw the line in that aspect and how to cultivate cultures that don't depend on such things. So
100%. I mean, they're starting to become like a line between like schools that are like professional. They show like professionalism, and then there's like the other schools, which I'm not gonna name them, but you know who you are. But there's definitely like the line is getting like more defined as the years go by. Like I am gonna shout out Syracuse, because schools like them are like getting more professional. They're like elevating everything. So I think it is good to see that, but there are some schools that need to fix their act.
yeah.
I just wish like a lot of more people took, well, Valorant in general, like a little bit more professionally in terms of like tier 3 and collegiate, because collegiate, in like some of the collegiates I've seen anyway, and have some personal experience with, there's like one or two adults there, and then like even then those adults don't act like adults. They act like cool kids trying to stay in the club or something like that. I'm not sure what's going on, but there needs to be like some sort of professional like management or something that are able to, first of all, protect the staff and like back up the staff when the staff think a decision needs to be made, like towards either dropping a player or like reprimanding someone after they've done something that's not acceptable. And then there's like having to, well, show the players that there are like people there who are going to hold you accountable for things that you do, because it's not just an issue in collegiate, tier 3, even tier 2, I would say. There are so many issues of players not respecting staff, goes for management and for coaches also. And well, I can get into the coach player thing another time, but managers use so much time out of their day. Like some people like don't even know how to use prac for some reason, and they go so out of their way to be like being DM'd like 1 hour before scrims and be like, can you drop everything you're doing and help me book this and this and this? And like, okay, I got you. Managers, like the best managers fucking do that. Kale does that all the time, and no one respects managers enough. And I'm so happy that Kale was talking about putting her foot down way more often, because this is something managers, coaches alike, all the staff in like tier 3 collegiate, even tier 2, maybe even tier 1, needs to start doing. And like the only way that's going to happen is if people start shifting towards it's a staff dominated team sort of mentality, I would say. Because you see it's reinforced in tier 2, how if you get a premier spot or something like that, only the core of 3 players get to decide what happens with the roster, and the roster will only stay there with the core 3 of players, right? But like, the team isn't going to get better if they don't put their trust in, let's say, a coach, for an example. Because there have been teams in Challengers, still currently in Challengers, that have completely disrespected their coach, and then they only get worse as a result because in their mind, they have what it takes already. And it just clearly isn't happening.
Yeah.
So like seeing how some collegiate orgs are like making that step forward to be more professional, I like love it so much. It's like something we need to see more of.
I think. Oh no, go ahead.
No, I was just kind of gonna say also, I think certain programs in the collegiate scene can really warrant away from similar ideas that you were just bringing up in the tier 2. Like, I feel like there's certain colleges that have collegiate programs that when something happens that's like against rules, they just kind of like put things under the rug. And I feel like it really elevates at the collegiate level currently, because in the tier 2, tier 3 scene, at least in my perspective, tier 1, I feel like they kind of have a better job of like not putting stuff under the rug, and they're kind of like, even though things happen behind like the walls, they're more open to it. But like tier 2, tier 3 teams also in the Valorant culture, they be doing a lot of shit that they just like don't be telling like anybody, and then people find out, and then it creates drama and it creates all of this. And I think collegiate is starting to do the same thing in some aspects from some schools, and it's kind of, I guess, like sad to see such programs that you had hopes for such players, and then you just really find out that the players are kind of shit human beings, and they treat their support staff also shitty, and then the support staff leave due to a lot of reasons that even come down to potential sexism, and they just kind of like, they don't learn from it. There's no one like saying like, yeah, like this stuff happened, it has to stop, it shouldn't happen again.
Yeah.
I think obviously we're addressing a lot of like major issues within the collegiate scene, and I really think that there needs to be like a true call to arms in a sense of like, there are orgs that want to participate in the collegiate space, tier 1 organizations with big money, big contracts, and the ability to give real careers in esports, which is what anybody who's competing in esports low-key wants, right? Like, everybody would love to work at Sentinels or Complexity and get to work in like the actual tier 1 professional scene. The problem is until we're able to shift not only the dynamic of like what collegiate players look like and what professional players look like, we're never going to see that growth. And I made a post about this, highlighting Zellsis from Sentinels, and this is a guy who like in the past, like I kind of just thought he was like a funny guy, but we don't see players that are like true advocates for their school. They're true advocates for themselves. And I think that once a player is able to start advocating for the advocates of them, that's whenever you start to get real professionalism and you start to get real identity of a player and of, a university program, right? Zellsis doesn't go a day without saying buy the Sentinels bundle. I can tell you, like, this guy does not care that, his teammates are getting like an extra check in the mail. He cares about he's getting an extra check in the mail, but he's also concerned with the fact that like he's got to keep his org happy regardless of winning or losing tournaments, right? And it's going to be the same thing for universities. All of these players want their universities to do more, get us a new facility, get us 5090s, get us, people that just do our homework for us, right? Like, they want all these things, like they're a tier 1 professional player because they're in a professional environment. And I think that's the biggest problem with esports with collegiate esports is it breaks the silver lining between tier 2, tier 3, semi-professional scene and the professional scene by basically creating a pseudo tier 1 scene with tier 3, tier 2 players. That is really dangerous because, one, the collegiate scene is not able to scale at a rate that is at all normal with normal traditional tier 1 esports. Colleges move on like a 10-year delay. Like, that's just how it always has been and always will be. right? Like you have to convince sponsors, you got to convince a bunch of old guys that have billions of dollars, like that are just like alumni, right? Like these processes move slow. And so that's something that, you know, like at Western, like we've really tried to implement. We had a case where we had a player on our team who we found some behind the scenes stuff that they were doing that was like definitely like, you know, uncalled for, and it broke, you know, kind of terms of service. And we didn't go and like put this guy on Twitter and like bash him or anything, but we definitely like gave him, you know, one, like due diligence, right? Like get it, you know, kind of give him like an opportunity to like speak for himself and not just like gang up on him, but also be like, this is like a 2-strike system, basically. Like 1 strike is like a harsh warning and like a bench, and like kind of just like reevaluate it, and then it's like you're done, right? And unfortunately, like we had to let go of that player, but like that's something that, you know, if you're not comfortable doing that within your program, regardless of who that player is, like it's really bad. And there's a lot of schools that I've heard a lot of behind the scenes things that, you know, if push came to shove, we could probably nuke the entire ecosystem, right? Like everybody's got dirt on everybody in Valorant. That's just the way it is. But we don't want to do that. Like why would we want to just blow up the ecosystem, right? There's beautiful projects that come out of Valorant, right? There's things like Funhaver, where you have, you know, a guy who's like putting up his own money, his own time, his own resources, his own connections to put on this big event. You have things like Red Bull, which are like just angel sponsors, right? Like these guys come in and they just like gift out facilities for these big tournaments, and they do a lot of really good things. We have things like the Retake, which are podcasts that are probably you guys are probably not getting paid to be here, I'm guessing, right?
What do you mean?
What do you mean?
Shout out Retake.
Right.
I'm getting paid
like,
so much right now.
but and there's other things like for instance, Western, we participate in a tournament called the SEC. The SEC basically has like probably 3/4 of their sponsorship money like straight up comes from me. But it's because like I think the SEC is great. The casters that work in it it's 100% a student run organization, came out of Auburn, and we're good friends with Auburn. If you look at all of our posts, our most shit talk ever done is with Auburn. But if you also were to look at scrims, we've scrimmed with Auburn the most. Like we've met Auburn guys at LAN and we're friends with them. Like we've played with them in like for fun tournaments. Like we've done content with them. And all of these things, like these are things that we should be pouring whatever resources we have into the scene, right? And so, you know, if we're able to really kind of come together and stop trying to do this, like, let's drop a bomb on this guy, let's cancel, like, let's call out this, you know, 16-year-old CEO of an organization on Twitter, right? And it's like they've got 500 followers and they're an org, right? It's like, okay, congratulations, you learned Photoshop, you have a banner, and you paid for a check mark for a month. Like that's not an organization. It's not.
We are
It's
shooting.
It's just not. Like I truly, but
Sorry,
is the idea of those guys starting up organizations good for the scene? Yes and no, right? And so really trying to outline exactly what every foundational level of esports needs to look like and rewarding that. That's what esports needs to get to within the collegiate scene, within the tier 2 scene, and within the tier 1 scene. And that's just what it needs to be, like straight up. And then we'll have less instances of people like Kale getting put on blast behind the scenes because they didn't book something on time. And some asshole is like, I don't want to scrim Sinclair, they're going to shit on us. Like, that's just the truth.
Shout out Sinclair.
Shout out Sinclair. I love those guys.
Yeah, I love every single one of those beautiful Valorant players. Instinct, I swear to God, such a fake ass motherfucker. Sorry.
Shout out Fair.
I'm friends with them. I can say this shit.
just so we're aware. Just so we're aware.
Which, by the way, the only guy in collegiate that I think I've ever glazed, and like truly this guy deserves it, was Caillou, and he's on M80 now. That guy's the GOAT. If we want to talk about, there's 2 GOATs of collegiate within the past 4 years, and that was Prime Furbsa on Northwood, and even that was like debatable. Okay, like he was low key, he was shitting on a lot of guys. There was a lot of stat padding there, but whenever it counted, he did deliver, which I gotta respect the hell out of. But Caillou is hands down the best IGL in collegiate within the past 4 years. I don't care what anyone says.
I think that what else? I think also just going back to your point of like organizations putting like not organizations necessarily, but like the schools putting their foot down for like different situations. Like it doesn't have to do like public foot downs. I just feel like it's very like due to something that happened a couple of weeks ago where someone that I know was like somewhere in a VOD or something like that. Like they had friends watching that team's VOD because like one of them was dating them or something, and they like let it leak that someone on the team wanted to call someone the hard R. And I made like a tweet about it, which is like I just find it very funny because people are nonstop glazing like different parts of the collegiate scene, being like, oh, there's so much positivity and stuff. And like I agree with positivity, but there's also like certain instances
There's a
where
lot
like
of negativity.
a lot of people let a lot of shit slide, where if that was in a like actual, honestly, like tier 2 VOD, but if that was like caught up in anything related to tier 2, that person would be canceled and they would have zero brand, they would have like zero like potential chance to get out of it. And I feel like the fact that a lot of schools can just let people do things that are so negative and then not at least teach them the negatives of such actions so they can learn from it and then really like grow as a human being is kind of a double standard in my opinion, because you're having these collegiate players, yes, they're under your name, but them being able to just freely be able to do stuff that would normally get them canceled. And like no offense, if they did that, like they would lose their job. Like they could be dismissed from the school if it like actually got out of like outside like an esports program, right? And like it's a fact of people are like, oh, like because I got asked through like somebody else to take my tweet down. My tweet did not generalize the school, like it generalized everything. Like it did not say the school, the person's name, nothing. Okay, it got likes and it got people's responses because no offense, a lot of other people thought that's kind of weird. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like it's not the instance of like making a tweet. Like my intention of such a tweet isn't to necessarily cause like like I'm not saying drop that person. I'm not saying like do that. But you need to also like understand that person should also get the thing of like, yo, like you can get your scholarship revoked. You can lose your spot on the team because that shit is not stuff that is okay. Like that is you go into the real world, you're not able to do that shit. So why are you doing it now in esports? Like I feel like there's been such like a sense of like regular idea about certain things like that just happening in esports and people are okay with it. And then when they meet people who aren't okay with it, who are in more of like the higher ends of such like a video game or something, it becomes such a instance where they're like, what? I didn't know it was actually that bad. Like, I think you would know what, like, some of this stuff is not good, and you're just choosing not to take accountability. And that's, like, the big thing. Like, I shouldn't have to take down a generalized tweet for the sake of that person keeping a scholarship. Like, I'm sorry, because I'm not going to publicly be like, oh, yeah, that never happened. That tweet was for no reason. Like, no. Okay, I'm gonna stand my ground, and I feel like a lot of people know that about me. I stand my ground because I'm stubborn and I don't really care. But it's just like some of those instances, you know what I mean, where I feel like in collegiate they really just sometimes certain organizations, like I said, they allow the culture to allow such things. But I'm also not saying we should go on blast about these people on Twitter specifically. I'm just saying as a collective, as like a scene, we should have the understanding that these things aren't okay, and we shouldn't be scared to at least make the right people know in the or also like there should be something that stops them from just not, I don't know how to word it. It's like I guess like some repercussion. Yeah, there should be consequences, you know? Yeah. And so I feel like, you know, because I'm gonna be honest, if any of my players did something like that and I knew it and I was in the VOD, like I know at least like, okay, I will say I'm definitely one of the most harder people in the Fisher like Valorant side of the program, just because like I guess I have a higher standard for people, because also in some aspects I just know if they want to do anything they got to get their shit together, you know what I mean? Like you can't be expecting to come over here and then doing some random BS and acting like that's gonna be easily free elo, right? And so that's why I kind of, like I said, like Fisher, yes, do we shit talk? I mean, yeah, I mean every school should be allowed to shit talk like a different school, with non-personal attacks. Do we have an ego? I mean, yeah, some of our players have an ego. Like Fisher and Navy, I'm sorry, they're allowed to have an ego. We have a player in challengers. We have good players. We're allowed to have an ego about them. Yeah. But we also don't standpoint that our lower rosters who aren't like on Navy can also just be like, we don't call them shit either. Right. And we don't want them to be acting like terrible human beings, because we know at the end of the day that's not who they are, and that's not the type of culture we bring, right? So it's just like, I guess it's just the different instances, you know what I mean, with different things. I feel like one thing that I do want to kind of like just come back to, maybe outside of collegiate before we get to our like last ending topics. I feel like, you had certain things happen in the past, so I know like you've done stuff outside of the collegiate scene. What are like your opinions on the current challengers? Like not necessarily the teams, but like I guess like also I feel like it's a good question to finally include Relic, because Relic is probably the least collegiate side of us. So just
Yeah.
as a general standpoint to the Valorant scene, what are our thoughts on Liga Ace? Like
Okay, well,
like with
like
being the TO. Like
there was a
I'm
lot of
curious.
drama. There was a lot of drama when they first entered the scene. Nope, I didn't. I know there were like names of a few organizations that could have handled challenges in NA, and I think the transition to them being in NA, like if you were there, if you know, you know. Like I'm not going to talk about what happened, but like they were doing things in a way that uh, they did. They didn't do their due diligence. I'll put it that way, but they took criticism. They made the changes they could. And since I'm obviously not in tier 2, I don't know how like their match seeding or how they're like how they set up the matches or how they broadcast stuff, how the admins handle it. I don't know about that for the tier 2 teams. But I think from what I saw during the open qualifiers with the times being so early, they heard people's complaints and suggestions, and they put them a couple of hours behind so more people could play. When the signups required some sensitive information that they didn't have any guarantee to safe store, they took the requirement away so people could register without putting in that information for the time being for the open qualifier teams anyway, as far as I'm aware. They've tried their best to make a situation they should have prepared themselves for. I'm not saying like, oh, they are so great. Like they definitely messed up, but like they're trying to make it better. I know Kale. I know some other stuff happened in terms of like the behind the scenes. I don't have much knowledge on that myself, but all I'm saying is from like an outside perspective, they're okay. I definitely would have preferred a different organization other than Liga Ace to actually host challengers, especially for NA, since they already have South America, LATAM. Is it LATAM or South America? Sorry.
It's LATAM.
It's LATAM, right? So they already
Mhm.
have LATAM stands. I would rather we get our own like NA representative. You know what I mean? Because like when people joined the open qualifier server, there was still stuff in like different languages that wasn't like fully English, including the sign up form as well. But
Just like
I
a
mean,
split focus. They're
there's a
not like
special
all in.
yeah, like I think they want to make it work, but I just don't know why they were chosen from like Riot's point of view. But anybody else have any other thoughts? I don't know. That's all I got. I think the open qualifiers were handled really well though, like in terms of like the actual like tournament system and everything.
I have views on tier 2, but I think my views come from probably like a little bit more of like an overarching POV where it's like this with any business, right? Where like if you want something to be good, you have to make it attractive, and you have to make anybody involved be able to win, right? It's how you grow collegiate. It's how you grow tier 2. It's how you grow tier 1. It's how you grow anything. And I think that Riot has created this system where there is only one winner and there are many losers. And I think whenever you have a system like that, you get people like Liga Ace who are just they're able to take on something like challengers, because to them, it's kind of like the famous saying, like, what's a game of chance to you, right? And so if you have these companies like Liga Ace that are able to come in, not do a great job, it's because the ecosystem is set up where not enough people are able to win, right? And so it really comes back down to the developers in this instance, where it's like, you have to make the tier 1 pro player schedule healthy, right? Like you can't release agents like Teo 10 days before Masters and give teams like a game breaking agent that just like completely alters everything and change the map pool. Like it puts a lot of like mental load. Like truly, I don't understand Riot, because you have the golden boy of Twitch, Tenz, unironically go on stream every day and be like, this game sucks. How is that? How is there not, like, I truly don't understand how at Riot Games there is not an entire department dedicated to Tenz's happiness. I'm being
That's the whole
serious.
company.
I mean,
What the hell are you doing? That
Tenz is
guy,
happy
that guy should
multiplayer,
never
so-
have a bad ranked game. He should never have any stream snipers. He should have an entire department dedicated to protecting the integrity of his game. There should never be an instance where he has a single frame drop. Okay, that guy has more eyes on him than Trump at times. It's insane. This guy is the golden boy of Valorant, and you're meaning to tell me that he's able to come on stream and be like, I'm able to say no to the most popular team in the world with the biggest contract in Valorant history just because this game sucks that bad. He would rather stream like literally anything else and just like take trips. Like, don't get me wrong, I can respect the guy wanting to spend the money that he's earned, but like, seriously, that guy had a lot of years left in his career. He's really young and he's really very much in his prime, and we've created a system where he's able to get burnt out within basically 2 years, right? Because he kind of retired and then came back.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's insane. He's one of the biggest streamers on Twitch, and we're just we lost Tenz. I don't know what we're gonna do, guys. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. Shit, Tarek doesn't even stream anymore. I see Tarek stream less than me. Like, so I'm just saying there is a global head of Valorant Esports, and there is a guy that is kind of in charge at making global Valorant Esports decisions. And he's been around for all bad decisions. And I'll leave it there.
You know who you are.
I wonder who we could be talking about. This isn't the first time we've seen stuff like the Tejo incident happen, though. Like last year, Breeze changes happened last second, then they did changes again, I think. And then Guy was nerfed, the most like powerful agent at the time. They did a Viper nerf that changes the entire meta of how teams were playing it currently in the offseason as well. So I think a part of it is people didn't push Riot back enough because of what happened, and like they made it work. But because they showed Riot that they can make it work, Riot, they should have learned the first time. I don't know why they introduced Tejo, who, okay, as an agent, story-wise for the game, that man had no forewarning whatsoever. I will say that. As someone who goes into the range every single update to look at like Brimstone's phone, nothing like no one should. If you don't know the lore, nothing, you would have not saw this coming. And even people who do know the lore did not see this coming whatsoever. It wouldn't have happened. So you introduce the most game-breaking agent without any like teaser, nothing like that at all. Why Riot? Why would you do that to me?
I feel like a big problem that happened with Valorant specifically early on in the game was you had a lot of really talented directors. Like you had Coleman Palm, Altambre, and then you had people like Nikki Wu who were playing the game. Like these are guys that were like a moral radiant at the start of the game, right? And they were consistently playing ranked every day, like just after hours and work. And those were the guys that were like basically creating agents, fixing the primary bugs of the game, like core developers that were skillful in the game as well. And those guys have been promoted, like straight up, which they've been promoted and in turn replaced by people that are trying to fill like really, really big shoes. And so you have a lot of people at Riot that are trying to overcompensate. And then also they're just straight up across all of tech was a lot of overhiring right after COVID and during COVID, right? A lot of remote workers.
Oh, yeah.
And so now you have, a lot of tech companies that are just constantly having to downsize because they've got so many people working on a project. There's too many, cooks in the kitchen, right? And so I think that there's a big problem at Riot that I don't know if it can be solved easily. And their CEO about a year ago, did like a big Riot layoff where he gave them all like really good severance packages and was like, we just can't keep up. Like we're just overstaffed completely. And it was a really good play and I really respected it. The problem was they didn't re-implement to some category or degree those core developers that worked on Valorant from day one into like beta, like episode 2 area, right? Because that was kind of like prime Valorant, right? And I really do think, like, you know, Omen came out with the start of the game, and Omen is played until this day. Like, it's clear that Omen is not only a very powerful agent, he's able to be countered, but also he's really good, and like he's still used. KO came out. I haven't seen a KO in forever. Like, Reyna came out in the beta, and I haven't seen Reyna in forever. Like, there's just so many agents that, like, I don't know if we're heading in a direction where we're going to end up having like 70 something agents, and it's going to be like fearless in league, where like you're just not going to have smokes one game, and it's going to be game 7 for a grand finals, and it's going to get really weird really fast. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, right? But I do know that, you know, the current meta of Valorant is really scuffed. So
We're not laughing at you. What
I'm
is
sorry,
Relic doing?
Relic,
This is worse than
is
like.
spitting on the crowd. I'm like
Wait.
listening to what you're saying, and I
I
look
didn't even
over,
see him, and
there's
this
just
guy's
a
out of his chair now.
that just
Yeah, no,
pushes
he
him
like
back, and
went
he's just
down to
on
like the
ground.
chair, bro.
I apologize.
What are you? Okay, we'll talk about it after the podcast. What the hell? That looks like, can I speedrun getting fired?
I mean, I kind of wanted to have no.
No, okay. So, I mean, I kind of like, I have like similar ideas, kind of like what you're
The one
saying.
time I don't have my thing on. I was sitting here pulling up like a tweet to talk about, and this guy's out of his chair. That's funny. Continue on. What were you saying?
Basically, I also just want, I feel like, unless you have something specific to add, I'll just like say my piece, and then we'll probably go into just like closing out the podcast, just because it's been like an hour low key, and then
Yeah. I don't know why you guys
Well,
keep letting me
no.
talk for this long.
we allow
I mean-
yapping on the podcast. I mean, look, we have Dave who totally yaps all the time, guys.
I
Dave's
feel like Dave
I
is
don't
like,
yap.
Dave needs an entire segment before we close tonight. This guy needs to.
I was-
This guy's he's been like the
He's
whole
sitting there
like
silent,
talk less,
bro.
smile more. This guy's ready to
Like,
unload. And I
both
feel
of
like
you
he's got
done.
something to say to me. Probably.
I had a couple things to say, but I was, you know, I'm not a yapper. I just let people talk. You know, I let them.
Well,
Dave
I
just
want to
like-
hear them, Dave. I want to hear your piece, man.
you know what? Let's do it. Last couple of segments, Dave will be all you. Go ahead.
No, it's all good.
So I'm not allowed to yap? That's messed up,
Please,
guys.
Dave.
Okay, you had your time.
Huh?
You had like 20 minutes of this podcast. I feel like, unironically. Let's give Dave some time.
We got to get a counter in the bottom right of just Kale time yap, and it'll be like over half of the podcast.
I need a Dave rant. Dave
A Dave rant. I don't rant.
Dave gonna rant.
I don't rant.
Bro,
Dave,
guys.
what are your views on everything that we've talked about so far? Like, we've talked about what Collegiate needs to look like on a fundamental and overarching level. We've talked about what the tier 2 scene is really struggling with, and we've talked about the past and the present and what the future needs to be for Riot Games. So what do you think about any of those issues, Dave?
I do have two things that I want to bring up. One about the thing you said with Zellsis, right? The thing that I like envision that I want college players to look like. Have you ever watched an NFL game, right? And they're doing the player intros, and they have the people from Ohio State. Every single one of them always says the Ohio State. That's what I want more from players, is so they actually have pride in their school. They always talk about like yeah, I play Valorant, you know, I'm really good, but they never talk about like what else they do for their school, what they're doing like outside of Valorant. You know, I want more people pride in their school.
You know, I don't even see enough people like put the actual like school's tri-code into their name.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, that's like a super big issue. Like a lot of the guys on Western, like they really didn't want to do it, and that was like I really was like, guys, there are a few things that we're gonna do, just because I say so. Like just trust me, we're gonna do them, and everything else I'm like, just put it to a vote, and I won't vote. Like, you guys can figure this out. And that is one of the things that I really insisted on. Is like, I want us to be, if we're at a LAN, it's full professionalism. Like, not like literally just max energy, unless we're in a closed room, no shit talking during games, right? Like, and then like you said, like the abbreviations in the names, and then really trying our best whenever a content organization or like a tournament organizer asks us to like do like content, like for SEC or whatever, we we really try to go all out of it. We try to be extra. We try to be extra funny. We try to be like, oh, do this. We pull in guys that we constantly rotate guys in, like, okay, this guy did something last week, let's grab this guy and put him into this video. This guy did a video last week, let's put him into this video. This guy did something last week, or he might win the rankings and the MVP award for this week, so let's get him in the video so he can say something. And constantly trying to find ways that we can help other parts of the ecosystem grow, right? Because that's how you get a school like Western Kentucky, who like is not that great in other collegiate things. Like, we just aren't. But when it comes to Valorant, you bet your ass, like, we're going to be one of the teams that get invited purely because, like, we'll show up early, we'll do media days, and we will do it with a smile, and we'll be prideful for the fact that, like, we go to Western. And I think that more you got to go the extra mile, even if you're from a small school in the middle of, Bowling Green, Kentucky, right? Like, we got a Corvette museum. That's like low-key it. Like, that's it. We're not Alabama. We're not some big school like Auburn or LSU, or like you said, Syracuse, which by the way is like, that deal is awesome. I also love Arnold.
Syracuse.
Arnold Her from Gen G. All the Gen G guys there. Marissa, their CFO, super sweet lady. Eugenia, their AD of Ops. She will hook you up. That is a person to connect with on LinkedIn. She knows everyone and everything, and she's awesome. But yes, that's how you get orgs like Gen G to come in and partner with a school like Syracuse or University of Kentucky, right? And not Harvard. Like, why didn't they just go to Harvard? Harvard could have sprung together $3 million, $4 million, gotten a facility and paid some kids to come out of tier 2. Like, that's nothing to them. They're Harvard, right? So that's really what collegiate players need to think about, is like, your school matters and your growth matters, and what you put out there really matters. It's how you get the cool things that you want.
More than just a game at the end of the day.
Exactly.
It's a business. It's a system.
It's a business. That's what people need to understand. It's a business, and you're a part of it.
The stigma behind esports is still in a very bad spot. It's gotten way better over the years, and I think it will continue to get better. But like, with the way some people are acting in collegiate, let's say, no other universities are going to want to actually support an esports program in the way, at least in Valorant, in the way the scene's looking right now. So like, we got to get on that. Got to make us look good. I got to be like, this is something that everyone wants to be a part of, rather than like, you're going to join and want to leave immediately after.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well,
we should close this episode out. As always, we like anyone who decided to listen to the yapping. Like, thank you for being here. Also, thanks to Builltt for deciding to take time out of his day.
Thank you for having me.
Here with us.
Thank you for being here.
And really, that's probably it for the episode. Before we end, I would like to say, though, if you are an organization with 500 followers, but you got a bank account, Kale__Val on Twitter. I'm always looking for money. I'm a broke college student. Anyways,
wait, we're just handing out plugins just like that?
I don't know. Someone else brought up the fact that we have those 500 followers with money. I need that money, bro. I don't get paid for shit.
If we okay, but also to support you a little bit there. If you are listen, I'm talking to you, tier 3 Twitter. If you are an organization with like sub 3K followers and you're out here trying to pay people for things, release financial statements, release your balance sheets, show proof of funds, stop being a scam organization. It's not cool. It's also illegal. Don't do it. It's very bad. Have a good night.
Stop being engaged in it also.
Have you been the Esports with that money? Yo. Kale__Val, like, put the money.
I am gonna shout them out at Spate Esports. Anyways,
I hope everyone has a fantastic night that watched this, and I hope everyone in this amazing call also has a fantastic night, except for Relic. Goodbye, guys.
No, that's all good. That's all good.